Hello everyone, it is now block 302,597, which means we are here to ask something like, do altcoins help or hinder the Bitcoin ecosystem? This show comes off the back of the Bitcoin group on Friday when Kristov and I criticized Dogecoin for the famous moon motif that they've been using as like a marketing strategy. I think we're all familiar with it. It looks something like this. And one of the things that sort of struck me was just how do we manage the expectations of the people in the altcoin sphere? Because as somebody that has personal experience, I was one of the original members of the Feathercoin community when it first started. Actually, Feathercoin often tries to take the credit for being one of the first kind of altcoins that gave way to the flurry that followed. One of the things that I often get criticized with, or one of the first things that someone says to me when I tell them that I'm one of the co-founders, is they say, well, why should I pick Feathercoin? And my answer has always been, well, you shouldn't. Certainly not based on what I tell you. I recommend that you go do your research, go do your homework, and make up your own mind. And there is this kind of assumption on the part of many skeptics in this space that the altcoins are nothing more than just pump and dump schemes. And I think a lot of the responsibility comes down to the founders, whether or not it is the express intention of the creators of the coin. The fact is that the people on the exchanges, the people that control the beliefs and the information in the system, are able to control the price. And often that means that the actual people that are working hard on the code and actually working on building the community on the forum and offline in the meetups often end up getting shortchanged because the value of the coin goes down rather rapidly. So today I'm joined by Marguerite.
Hello.
Hello. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm known on Twitter as Coin Artist, and I'm here with Lemma Technology Group. This is Jim and Will, and they are my mining crew. I am an artist mostly, but I also dabble in the technology realm, and I'm a big advocate for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and the entire ecosystem.
That sounds great. And actually, this actually comes off the back of a tweet that you sent last night. I think you must have watched the Bitcoin group, and you say hostility towards altcoins doesn't make sense to me. And I actually think that's absolutely right. Like one of the things that we said kind of early on when we were starting Feathercoin, that we would be the coin that didn't hate on other coins. I don't think there's anything wrong with a bit of harsh criticism, and I'm expecting some criticism today from Josh. Say hi, Josh.
Hi guys, how are you?
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I like math.
Anything else?
It's not much to say.
You're pretty smart when it comes to cryptography and blockchain technology. I mean, we've had some chats in the past, and you seem to blow my mind a little bit.
I try to keep the big picture and the little picture in the field of view at the same time. Apparently, that's hard.
Yeah.
So, if anything, that's what lets me be better at that kind of thing. I don't know.
Great. Well, I look forward to hearing your thoughts. David Gilson comes in live from Hull and Hull City Council, particularly representing them. Say hi, David.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everybody at home who's watching, and hello to everyone else on the Hangout. Yeah, I'm mostly a journalist. I'm currently writing for CoinBuzz.com. I was with CoinDesk.com. I broke the whole story on Hullcoin, and I am now on the board of directors with Hullcoin, advising them and making sure the thing happens.
Fantastic.
What is Hullcoin?
Hullcoin is the first local digital cryptocurrency. It's people in the welfare rights department at Hull City Council wanted to come up with a local currency to help it within an anti-poverty framework. And they decided that cryptocurrency would be a good way of doing that.
Probably is. Is it? So this is more local than like Aurora Coin or something, I guess.
Yes, it's going to be just for the city of Kingston upon Hull.
That sounds great. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. And we also have Crypto Camel here with us today.
Hi, that's me. How's it
Tell
going?
us a little bit about yourself.
I live in East Midlands, UK, and I guess I was brought in to help give a trader's perspective. That was the initial reason for me being invited along. But yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to be representing the altcoin side of the debate, because to be honest with you, I'm certainly mixed on which side of the fence I lean towards. To be honest with you, I do think there's a lot of the Bitcoin purists have actually got very good arguments that I tend to agree with a lot of the time. However, I am involved mostly with altcoins these days, so I think they're here. Let's deal with it. They're not going to go away. So, that's my latest thinking on the whole thing.
That sounds great. Well, I've already got some questions here in my notebook for you for a little bit, so we'll definitely be keeping you on your toes.
Okay.
Thomas, hello. Say hello. Normally you're the one that's hosting the show.
It's so much easier to just sit back and relax, let the British voice take care of everything. So
I love your British voice. Do it for us.
I'm not sure I could do it just like that. I've have something to say.
No, Tom uses that for if you're Irish, Scottish. It doesn't really matter which part of the UK you're in. That's kind of how you sound. So look, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this today since your tweet last night, Marguerite. And the thing is, if you look at Cryptsy and you go to pretty much any altcoin you like, all the charts pretty much look the same, right? Like they all kind of have this sort of sloping down and to the right every time you kind of look at them. And yet, when they kind of first start, a lot of these cryptocurrencies start with such hope and such euphoria, right? And it's always like a next generation coin. It's going to, go to the moon. It's going to break all these boundaries. But then after a while, the market tests the resilience of the team behind it. And usually what happens is the price just slumps. And then it becomes a question of, well, how do you define your success? Do you define your success by the market price, which is entirely governed by the subjective opinions of the people in the market, or do you use some other soft measure like how well it's adopted within your local community, something like that?
I think that you can even break it down further, the success further than that. I mean, initially you're bringing in people who are interested in creating a cryptocurrency to start with, and they might not even be aiming to have the most successful coin ever, but you're bringing in programmers who are interested now, and they're going to do this, and this is a starting point. So just that in itself is a small success for the ecosystem. And from there, then you have developers who are more informed and know what they're doing, and they have campaigns behind them, and their coin might not be innovative in the sense of the code, but they might have ideas behind their coin. Maybe it has a purpose, it's targeting a group, it's speaking for something. Like Darkcoin really promotes the idea of anonymity, and there are other coins too that focus on that, and they do have the developing team behind them. But even for the smaller coin, that a coin that might not be addressing such a huge topic like anonymity, but something that I know, like with Thomas, I've recently had this conversation that I was excited about Goldcoin because I'm a soccer player, and they, I went in on their IPO and I was really excited, and they're addressing the World Cup, and they've put together on their website, which is really pretty, it's got a betting page, and you can bid on the team and game by game, and even the mining pool. With the mining pool, you can bet while you're mining. So it's socially innovative in that way, and it might not be it doesn't have a huge volume. It's very new and it's little, but when I was excited about this and I wanted to talk about it with people, the immediate reaction was, I don't want to hear about it. It's stop talking to me about these altcoins, and that really, I was surprised. I knew that there was a negative sentiment towards altcoin, but that surprised me that even when being offered the altcoin, from the developer, a friend of mine was offered, they didn't want it. They just didn't want to be a part of it. So, I don't know. I guess I felt like at that moment this was something that we needed to discuss.
I think the main question you have to ask yourself is, can this problem be solved with Bitcoin? What is this new altcoin solving that can't be solved with Bitcoin? And especially when it comes to Goldcoin, I think that we can gamble just fine in Bitcoin. And it may be easier and might help Bitcoin more if you just set up a World Cup and Bitcoin website. If you look at some of the altcoins, like Potcoin came out, and Potcoin's been trying to get dispensaries and other places that deal with large amounts of cash to adopt a cryptocurrency. And I agree with their idea and their sentiment, but I'm not sure I agree it should be an altcoin. If you look at I had it a minute ago, now it's reloading on me, but if you look at the price of Potcoin, Potcoin has a clear rise up to 420. Then on 420, there's a series of dumps. So basically, you have a coin that was, in this period of time, it was an interesting coin. We were saying, will a dispensary accept it? Will a recreational facility in Colorado accept it? And everyone hoped it would happen on 420. It didn't happen on 420. The coin went down, and now you can see a slope, another slope, and then we're just like Chris is saying, we're trailing off to the right. How many times are we going to trail off to the right?
Right, because this was the same thing with 42 as well. Like, it comes out, the guy is able to somehow get an article in Business Insider, and this happens a lot. This is called an advertorial, when you have a piece of editorial writing, which is actually an advert. It's either done for favors or for money, and that's great if you can afford it. But then, of course, what happened was, it did this on the chart. You go to Cripsy, and of course the price just goes down and to the right, because there's no real, or at least it doesn't appear to be, apologies to anyone in the community that for 42 coin that might disagree, but there doesn't appear to be any clear purpose to the project, that it was just brought out based on a novelty, neophilia, this love of the novel, and let's just have it be new and different. The problem is, sooner or later, we've got to stop, slow down, and say, well, like Tom is asking, what is this good for? I think slightly differently to Tom, because what I'm seeing is the denationalization of currency. I'm seeing money and value now flows around lines of trust and community. And that's rather what we're doing on the internet at large, is we're rebuilding a lot of these smaller tribes that we used to go around in. You actually go online to get offline. You want to find out where to go. I see these cryptocurrencies primarily as local currencies with a global potential, right, that the whole world can get involved with, that you could have a piece of memory that could be taken from Oxford and be distributed all over the world using a blockchain. And I think when you buy one of these coins, what you're really buying into are the people behind it. So before you buy it, really what you want to be doing is not listening to the shills in the chat room, because a lot of them aren't even real people. They're just operated by single accounts, and they're often, using emails and collaborating on what the message should be. When you're in that chat room, you're vulnerable because you're approaching an important decision, which is that you want to buy this coin, not necessarily because you believe in it, but just because you think it's going to go up in value. The question you're asking yourself is, what will someone else do with the same information that I've got? And as long as you can get your capital to the market quicker than they can, then you buy it. What you don't realize is that a whole bunch of other people got there before you. They already arranged the sell-off. So when you start buying, you have no idea whether or not those people are going to just dump on you, and you're just going to lose money. And everyone's telling themselves the same story. Everyone's telling themselves a story about how they're going to buy low and sell at the top. But usually what happens is they buy low, they watch it go all the way up to the top, and then they watch it crash all the way back down to the bottom again, and they end up with nothing. And really, it's like the quicker you try to make your money, and that impatience, that waiting to get rich, and that impatience for the fear to be over, like you just want to make the money, that's what kills it in the end, I think. And a lot of these whales and these manipulators on the exchanges, and dare I say even some of the exchanges themselves, are probably just guilty of fleecing you along the way. They can see you coming from a mile off. But then how do we discern between a good coin and a bad coin?
Yeah, you can pretty much just start by doing exactly what Mr. Mad Bitcoin said, which is, does it solve a problem? I don't buy stock if I don't believe in the company. I like Tesla. I like Google. I don't really like anything else. So I kind of don't care what they do in the medium term, because I know that overall they're not going anywhere. And that hasn't steered me wrong in stocks, and it hasn't steered me wrong in any of the crypto community decisions either. I don't own alts, with very rare exception. I almost always hold Bitcoin. I've recently held Darkcoin for pretty obvious reasons, I think. I'm not convinced that it solves the problem entirely, but then again, there's not really anything else that does exactly that either. Longer term, I deal with some of the unsystem guys over email and on the mailing list, and so I know where things are headed. I know that So it's not just a matter of there being hype, although of course there is. But I know that it does attempt to solve a fundamental problem, like Zerocoin is also attempting to. And I think Zerocoin probably is going to do a better job of it long term, but you can't buy it yet. I don't know.
It's just the new fad, isn't it? Privacy coins, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I don't know if it's a.
It's just been added as an option to Blackcoin. There's Monero. There's loads, and you know, you only have to go through the announcement threads on Bitcoin Talk to see. You know,
I
Anon
literally
is
never go there
the
anymore.
new coloured coin. Well, no, I rarely do.
There's too much. It's yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess
I
if
think
you're
that,
looking for a solution.
I think that Crypto Camel is absolutely right on this. Privacy coins are the new fad, and our last fad was proof of stake coins. Black coin came out, then there was orange coin, blue coin, white coin. Before that, it was difficult to solve coins, vert coin, particle coin, all these other script.
Don't forget the country coins, of course, and the
country
coins.
coins.
You know.
Aurora coin.
But aren't we just making ourselves a slave to the trends? And aren't we just like, well, not we as in us here, but I mean generally like the public we. Yeah, aren't we making ourselves predictable if all we do is chase after the latest fad and the meme, if there's no substance behind it?
It's not that bad if you get in on the first mover. Obviously, if you held dark coin in the last week, it was golden for you. But if you hold black coin or new privacy coin or whatever the new one's going to be, it might not be so good. But it does look like Hollywood movies. Once you have a successful movie, someone comes along with a sequel and a copy and a remake and a new franchise. I don't know that that's unstoppable. There's money to be made here. Better and better teams are going to bring better and better products and rollouts to us. Better and better scams. So
I think, unfortunately, that is an aspect of human nature. I mean, if you look at the top 10 grossing video games, they're all sequels because people are, understandably, it all comes from understandable reasons, but people are risk averse, so they will try things that they know work. I mean, I agree with all the points that have been made here, and just to your question, Tom, about the pragmatic thing of what problem does this solve? I think one problem that it can solve, and I'm speaking with the whole coin hat on now. I don't have as good a hat as you, Tom, but I'll have to get one made up. Ostensibly we're treating it like a voucher system, but we didn't want to just be handing money out to people. We wanted a way to actually create value, and that is something that these crypto coins do. You can mine things, and there you've got this set of credits you can then pass around, and people can trade back and forth. So that is a problem that it solves. But yes, there are going to be lots of copycats, and we can't stop it. But I think there will be interesting things that come out of the things that people try. And sometimes people will try something and not get it right the first time, and one of the copycats will, because it's one of the rules of entrepreneurism. Don't be first, be the best.
absolutely, and Josh made a good point about Zerocoin or Anon coin. They could be the one to win this dark coin thing. This could be part hype, but also part real technology. But it all gets mixed together. You can't tell the difference.
I think most of the dark coin devs they know this. Either they may try to implement something, but it's kind of a fundamentally different design that's in Zero. It's just a matter of, for the same reason, it's taking a lot longer to develop Zero, because that's very much unproven stuff. Whereas doing ring signatures has been around for a little while longer, and it's more like probabilistic anonymity as opposed to kind of pure anonymity, right? So that depends on where you are and whether that's good enough for you. In the UK, for example, sometimes probabilistic anonymity may not be good enough for you, because then they could just throw you in jail and compel you to, reveal your secrets if they deem that you have them. So of course it's going to be the fad, because there's a fundamental problem that is being solved. There's something that isn't in Bitcoin that some people want, and not some people as just a handful of people talking about a non-existent problem, but they really do need this. Whether you're in countries like Venezuela or somewhere else where you really may need that level of anonymity.
I would agree, and the market is starting to speak here. The market is saying it wants Anon coins, it supports the development of these, whether or not this is the one or the next one's the one. We're saying to, Well, what we want is we want cute memes and anonymous coins. That's what the market said so far.
I think those are two different markets, but yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
there's overlap in the sense that people see movement in coins and value, and they're going to try and grab them. So there's plenty of people, I'm sure, that
I
are
mean,
holding
if
a dog coin right
Dogecoin had
now.
a cool mascot, it could be worth twice as much. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So actually, what you want
Isn't that
is
Amir? Is he not the...
Yeah, crypto cat coin. There you go.
So actually, what you want is like a dog dressed up in like a cloak in a dark alley,
The bat
going to
dog.
the moon.
Going to the moon.
Going to the moon.
Secret military spaceships.
Rather than keep launching all these different altcoins and just picking new words in the dictionary and putting coin at the end of it, why don't we just be honest with ourselves and just call this a lottery, which is largely what it is on Cryptsy, for example. The vast majority of the coins there don't actually have any clear purpose. Like a lot of them are just novelty. Are basically just a way of moving money around from one group of people to another, right? So why don't we just
yeah, usually from the early movers that try and convince people that there's a reason. They convince the unsuspecting or whatever based on some sort of friendships or relationship that they have. People, they're
box talking, yeah.
Yeah, that. But I call those are so there's a picture a big circle, and then within that circle there's some overlap like Venn diagrams. So you've got altcoins, and then within altcoins you have scam coins, or I guess you have scum coins. I guess first. So a scum coin is I describe an altcoin that is also a scum coin as one that exists for no particular purpose whatsoever other than to suit the fancy of its creator. And then so it's kind of a scam, but if it's an unintentional scam, then it's only a scum coin. If it's an intentional scam, then it's a scam coin. There's not really a whole lot of difference to the end user between the two. And then very rarely you have an altcoin. Litecoin was the first altcoin. If it were created today, it would be a scum coin because there's really nothing that is compelling about Litecoin per se, other than the fact that it provided a thing that we needed at the time, which was a different hashing algorithm other than SHA-256. So if some shit happened to SHA-256 or any of the pieces of Bitcoin, we had a fallback, even though it didn't really solve much of anything at all. And Charlie will tell you exactly that. It also went ahead and got a little bit more accurate with the block reward time. 2.5 minutes for the current architecture of a blockchain is probably the shortest that you want it without it starting to get into the point of diminishing returns strongly with orphan blocks, which is why any fucking coin that has a block reward faster than 2.5 minutes, 1 minute is really, really the bottom end of it, but that's pushing it too much in my opinion. If it's less than 2.5 minutes and they don't really clearly explain to me why they chose that, in the sense that yes, we felt that it was a good trade-off even though we know you're going to get more orphans or whatever, it's a scum coin. Doesn't mean that it had to happen on purpose, but as far as I'm concerned, it's either a scam or it's an unintentional scam.
I think the ultimate definition of a scum coin has to be Asia coin, where they hid like 500 billion coins in a certain block, and suddenly they were developed, and the code changed, and the developers sold all those coins. So
That's a scam.
hiding coins within
That's not a scum coin. That's a scam coin.
That'd be a scam. All right, so just scam.
I can speak from direct experience. When we had the debacle with Unox and with Feathercoin, we partnered up with a few other coins. I can actually tell you from direct experience that the developers themselves weren't the ones that made the money in that scam related to Phoenix Coin. There was one guy there that ended up screwing over the others. So even the insiders were still like victims of the whole thing, probably lost more money than the people on the outside because they probably had a false sense of security.
Something being possible like that, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, that's where I draw the line. That's a scum coin then. A scum coin is a design that wasn't intentionally made out to be a scam, but it was very, very flawed. For example, any of the launched script coins, those were all scum coins unless it was intentional, because there's no reason for them to exist. They don't have any security. That's why it was so beautiful when Charlie came out and offered to merge mine Dogecoin with Litecoin. That would actually be a fantastic idea. It merges the security of the two. One of the two is going to have to win long term. Probably it'll be. I really don't know which one it'll be. I don't think they're both going to exist in the main realm because their purposes are being supplanted. I think that Charlie would probably tell you the same thing.
I agree, Josh. I think the merge mining would have been a smart move. Dogecoin needed something to stave their price after the convention, after the Doge car, and they didn't do it, and now there's a lot of fear going on in that community as they drop below 100 Satoshis.
But Josh, you're also an expert in game theory and incentive engineering now, and I wonder what you think about the fact that, money clearly, or maybe I'm wrong, so you correct me if I am, but clearly money
No, I am
has
an
to
expert.
hold. Clearly the money has to hold its value, or otherwise we're not going to want this stuff in the first place. But if that is subject to change at any point, like you say, Litecoin, when it first came out, Charlie Lee launched it because he felt that none of the other alternatives like Fairbricks and Tenebricks that had come before it had really made a dent, and a lot of the founders had just walked off, and they lost their enthusiasm. They suffer what's called false enthusiasm, which is it feels good at the beginning, but then after a while they just kind of realize they don't care anymore.
Right.
And how are we supposed to tell? Perhaps we need a reputation system for these coins.
I would think that that'd probably just be the market cap. There's two main things that I kind of pay attention to, because I don't pay attention to alts at all really, but if I notice, for example, I noticed really only about a week ago or 2 weeks ago that there was an uncharacteristically large volume of transactions occurring, like in Bitcoin price, like standardized to the price of a Bitcoin. There was several thousand on, I guess, Mint Pal or whatever of Darkcoin, and that was too high for it to just be. So because I don't really give a fuck about the price, because that's too hard to keep track of. There's different volumes. How big is the coin? 42 coin. Well, the price is huge, but it's not really, because, right? So what is the market cap, and how much is actually flowing around? And that'll initially grab my attention, because that's one of those things that on the global level, there's plenty of idiots, and they're going to jump on any train that they think, even knowing that it's a scam. They're just going to hope that they're going to be the one to buy low and sell high. Statistically, most of them are wrong, but you're never going to stop people from gambling, so I kind of don't worry about that so much. I don't really want to preach to anybody about how they can gamble and whether they are gambling. That's up to you guys.
But this is such an integral feature to the blockchain of all. So this was what the incentive part of the Satoshi's original paper, which is around page 3 and 4 of the original white paper, if you look it up, was that he said you have to reward honesty more than fraud, which meant that you had to reward the honest players with the very tokens they were witnessing on the network. So the miners listen to the Bitcoin network, and they keep a track of all of the transaction of the Bitcoin tokens that take place on top of it, at the same time as solving a hard mathematical sum. They then weave the two together in a Merkle tree, publish it to everyone else on the network, and then the first miner to get 51% approval is the miner that gets to stamp in those transactions. So the whole thing is inextricably linked. So we still have to work out this incentive engineering part, don't we? If the price is going to fluctuate so wildly.
That to me seems more like a function of, well, aside from recent attempts by the Nautilus coin guys, but that's more of a function of there just needs to be enough volume. Basically, from an economics perspective, and I say economics, I mean like actual math-based economics, not what I've come to call most mainstream economics. I call it economology, because it seems like astrology to me. But actual economics, so you've got a volume, and then to make it move in price, things happen that affect the price. And so there's basically, looking at it like physics, there's an inertia to the price. And so the more people are holding something and using it, and there's a community and it's being used, that develops an inertia which resists movement. That can't really be artificially made when you have a fixed volume of something, right? The way that they achieve price stability in the US dollar is they're busy tweaking behind the scenes all the time the actual volume of it, up and down. I mean, we know that overall it's inflating, but
and you have to buy oil with it, and you have to buy oil.
So it's those two factors. There's a huge amount of it that's being used, and they are stabilizing the price. So you can try to engineer that into the coin, like they did, I guess, with Nautilus coin, right?
How did they do that with Nautilus coin, though? How did
something about 1% of it was pre-mined, and then that's some sort of crap called a Nautilus stabilization fund. You can tell I don't really like it because I think it's kind of nonsense. And then that's supposed to, I guess it automatically buys and sells itself somehow. I really haven't looked at the code because I kind of don't care. It's something that if it needs to happen, it can happen at the exchange level. It doesn't need to happen at the coin level. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Crypto Camel?
Automatic, I think isn't Brian Kelly himself, using that fund to trade it, and when the price goes up he sells, and when it goes down he starts buying, and it's trying to cap the price and buffer it at the same time, so stabilizing it top and bottom. Max Kaiser recently tweeted that he wants to do the same with Maxcoin, so it might be the next fad, you never know. I mean, it's not working yet, but it's a brand new coin, so it's going to be incredibly volatile. You've got a huge amount being mined. It's only a 10-week proof of work stage, so there's a huge amount coming to market. The miners have got to fund their equipment. They're going to be dumping it. So, these are the early days. But, I mean, volatility goes down. Bitcoin volatility is reducing, believe it or not. Like it's been mapped out that, its current trajectory within 5 years, we're going to be getting towards the euro for stability. A lot of altcoin traders think that Bitcoin's just far too boring to trade because it's so slow, it's so stable. We've had a nice rise the last few days, that's been great, but overall,
that is true. If you're a trader, you don't make money when it's stable.
The volatility is reducing, and that's just that comes with time. So it's a non-issue, isn't it? It's just the newer coins are going to be more volatile, and people, perhaps if you are just blindly buying a coin the day it hits an exchange without doing any research whatsoever in the hope that you're going to be making money, you are essentially gambling. It's not something I agree with. I certainly wouldn't advocate it. And the more people lose money with this happening, the less it will happen. It's just going to be evolution of the whole scene. The stupid people run out of money eventually.
Well, I don't know about if I would say stupid. I mean, this is a chart of Litecoin that took place back in November off the back of this tweet by Max Kaiser, where he announced that he was going to have somebody on from Litecoin on the Kaiser report. Now, bearing in mind that the guy has got somewhere in the region of like 85,000 followers, and of course, what happened to Litecoin was it just shot up to about $2 shy of his price target. And the thing to remember about these price targets is they act as a sort of anchor and adjustment, I think it's called in psychology, right? Like your memory tends to favor the short-term recall ability. So when you're looking at the charts and you're thinking about what you're going to trade, you're more likely to preference and privilege stuff in your memory based on what you've recently heard. So if somebody's been shouting $50 as a price target for Litecoin, then you're going to buy it all the way up to, say, I don't know, 48, at which point you're going to sell.
But then other people, prophecy.
Right,
never hit 50.
No, it never hit 50. It got to 48 because everyone had the same idea.
Everyone was trying to beat each other, so then it collapsed to 48. Yeah, that's psychology.
What you've got to realise is that Max Kaiser, with that and with Maxcoin, he's lost a great deal of respect, especially amongst like the altcoin traders. But I think an awful lot of his fans have seen him for what he is, and so he's not going to be able to continue doing this. It's not going to be in fact. Someone jokes on Twitter that actually any coin he mentions these days goes off to Kaiser Island, where it then dies. And it has happened with a few coins that he's mentioned. In fact, I think he tweeted Blackcoin being hot at the exact moment it then crashed 50%.
Has he mentioned others?
No, but no, I think he probably sees that as good competition. To be honest with you, Brian Kelly being on board with that.
Yeah.
I actually hope he'll make more of a success out of it. To be honest with you, a lot of people lost a lot of money, including myself, on Maxcoin. In fact, that's what triggered me to become more active in it. You can't. These are new coins, they're new technologies, new ideas, new teams behind them. Yes, there are a few scams out there. But overall, the scene is healthy. It's moving forward at a fast rate, and you have to, unless you want to bring in a third-party regulator, you have to let these things play out. This is the free market.
Well, I definitely don't want that.
The dream, isn't it?
No, I don't have a whole lot of problem with it happening. I mean, if we're going to discuss particular ones or whether I think that they're where I define them, is it an alt? Is it a scam? Is it a scumcoin? I will be more than happy to quantify that very specifically and debate it and try and come to what the truth is. However, yeah, I'm not going to tell anyone what they can and can't do. It is a free market. There's no regulators. I mean, there's some things that are technically regulated, but whatever. This is the internet. We still download things on the internet that you're not supposed to download.
Well, and we hope that there'll be less sheep in each continuing fleece. But I'm not so sure with all the new people coming into cryptos, how long it's going to take them to figure out that when you're getting in late to a coin, you're being fleeced by the people who got in early. Chris said something yesterday that made a lot of sense, that it's a zero-sum game, that the money you're taking out from the coin is money that, I'm sorry, suckers put in late. So if you're late to the party, you're probably late to the party.
Generally
It's just
speaking,
another
within
thing
the
to research,
ecosystem,
though,
that's
isn't
true.
it? You look at distribution. That's part of your research before you invest, before you speculate on a coin. You look at the distribution of it.
Maybe
you look how is it possible for anyone to dump on me? Am I going to invest 5 bitcoins or 0.05 bitcoins? You know, what's the possibility of a large holder wanting to get out, and if there is, when's he likely to do it? And it's it's just part of having to research before you go buying into something.
I want to hear what Marguerite has to say. What do you think?
Well, this whole time I've been thinking about the miners, and how when you guys talk about getting in on a new coin, I think about Bitcoin and how miners, I mean, they can't really get in on the mining game I mean, that's so expensive, buying ASICs outright. So say you have miners that want to come in, and I mean, getting in on script coins, that's the way to go, or those new coins, and getting involved there. So I think keeping it a broad and involved and exciting place is very important for the market to stay vital.
I agree with Marguerite. Mining script coins is where it's at because you can get that grid seed script ASIC. But the issue then comes back to what we're talking about gambling. You're now picking the new coin that's not on the exchange yet. You have to pick the winner out of the essentially unpublished coins, the newest ones, things like California coin, New York coin, I don't know, Myriad coin, some other coins I haven't heard of yet.
Don't forget that a lot of these altcoins can take risks in the development process that Bitcoin can't. And I know Adam Back, just recently has launched his campaign to have sidechains, but I still think we're waiting for a white paper or any idea of how this is going to work in reality. Because ultimately, in my view, the most important feature that Bitcoin had was its open source component. The fact that Satoshi made that key decision not to make this proprietary and closed, but to leave it open to everyone, fundamentally signaled his lack of willingness to take control over this. He wanted anyone to be able to use this. Like I say, I think like with Feathercoin, we deliberately didn't want to put any kind of novel features. We just thought this technology was really cool. We felt that the Bitcoin Talk forum was full of trolls and wasn't very hospitable. There was only a small group of us, and we just wanted to create like a small, friendly community. And actually, smaller groups in sociology, it has been shown time and time again in the studies that smaller groups privilege the minority views. Like if you're in a smaller group, you're more likely to get your voice heard, you're more likely to be taken seriously. And we just set a tone and a mood on our forum that was conducive to people wanting to promote one another's interest and not having these kind of secret agendas of like, okay, I'm only here because I want inside info so that I know when to buy and sell on the exchange. Like you were reinforced with the idea that if there was a problem, you were the problem, and if there was something that needed doing, you would go and do it. And it was about getting into local businesses. And then, of course, David, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the integration with Hull, because David did one of the first articles on Feathercoin for CoinDesk originally, and then the guys at the Hull City Council, which is where David is from, he's from Hull City, then asked if they could come down to one of the meetups. This was only back in January, not that long ago. And so Hull City Council came to one of the Feathercoin meetups and they said, hey, look, we're interested in either adopting Feathercoin locally as a local currency, or perhaps, we could ask you to help us if we could set up our own blockchain. And of course we were like, well, whichever, it's whatever's right for you. And of course we were happy to help. And I still feel like that was quite a big breakthrough. I mean, David, why don't you go into how these currencies can potentially lock in value to a local community?
Yep, sure. There's just a couple of points I'd like to pick up on first that you and Marguerite have said. I think, yes, altcoins can take risks. They can do things that Bitcoin can't. That's really that's great. And yes, it does provide a way in for people to start mining. Because I think the problem that Bitcoin has is it is too hard to get into. So it is actually, in a sense, centralizing itself because the difficulty level is so high. It's restricting itself to people who can afford it. In terms of the local communities and currencies, yes, that is a reason to use cryptocurrencies that would otherwise maybe get classified as a scumcoin, because what is the reason for it? What is it doing? Well, it's locking value into a local currency. Hullcoin is still at a very early stage of development, and the latest place where we're at the moment, I'm sort of sharing this out to the public, maybe a little too soon, but hey. Pete Bushnell, Pete Bushnell, who founded Feathercoin, he has actually recommended to us that we create our own coin, and he may well help us with that, rather than doing what we were thinking of doing, which was basically colouring Feathercoin. What we're actually looking at doing at the moment, and this is all subject to change, so don't go off blogging about what I've said. But we're actually talking about doing 100% pre-mine, because Hullcoin isn't going to be a cryptocurrency in a traditional sense. It's going to be basically an application of cryptocurrencies.
So you need it for the blockchain, but you don't need it for the rest of it.
Yeah, it's not. We'd love it to.
We seem to have lost David. He was just about to explain the truth to us. It's just
I think the NSA got to him, and they shut him down.
I was going to say, I support the idea of Hullcoin being pre-mined. It needs something different. I know we usually frown on pre-mines with a currency that's going to be on the open market, that's going to be mined. But if it's a totally different currency, and like you said, an application, it probably makes more sense to be pre-mined.
All that I really care about is if they're honest in advertising it. What people do with information is their own problem, and I'll be disappointed if they make poor choices. But that's people, right? That's life. The other thing I get really pissy about is like really, really direct misinformation.
Like Asia coin. But with the other coins, when they have a pre-mine and they have bounties, in the future I'd like to see the bounties in multi-signature wallets, so that when we agree the bounty's been fulfilled, the bounty gets released automatically, and it takes a lot of the pre-mine sting out of it. But David, you were talking about Hullcoin and how it might be completely 100% mined.
Yes, sorry for dropping out there. I'm afraid my iPad crashed, so when people say Apple, it just works. Anyway, yes, what we are doing is talking about pre-mining it, and actually we've been told that when you're coding a new currency, you can actually make the block reward as big as you like, so we could actually mine the entire currency in one block. Because that's all we need to do. We just need to create credits that we can pass around and use with the blockchain technology. I mean, we still want to use cryptocurrencies because of all the advantages. It's fast and it's secure. And that is the good thing about it.
And it's open source as well. And unlike a lot of these other local currency projects like the Let system, they rely on a central gatekeeper and an accounting mechanism, whereas here, Hull and Bristol, or whoever else we've been talking to as well, they have the benefit of a large ecosystem of open source developers if it needs patching.
That's right. I mean, that's actually the reason we backed away from doing other technical things that were discussed even just recently, and even back when I broke the story on CoinDesk. Back when I broke the story on CoinDesk, Hullcoin was going to be a hybrid of Feathercoin and Then. They've decided, before I came on board, they decided not to use Then, and we've kind of been moving away from the idea of colouring Feathercoins, because the technical, even though that is an open source project, it's not a widely used process, so the technical support isn't there. So we decided to back away from that, because if we got in trouble, which we probably would because things go wrong, we wouldn't be able to fix it, and there wouldn't be many people out there to help us.
That's great.
There's no reason to be the first, technically, in a project like that. So definitely see.
So I want to ask, if it's going to be, I mean, the purpose primarily of having there be a tapered mine um, in any coin, right? The reason that Satoshi designed it the way that he did was to simultaneously solve a few problems, and namely that piece of it was distribution. So how are you going to handle distribution and price discovery and that kind of thing if you have the whole thing pre-mined? Is it just going to be kind of like a gift card sort of thing? Like you're just going to peg the price, and then however many, if people want to buy 2 of them, then they just buy 2, and if they want to buy a lot, but the price is going to be the same for a while, or?
Yes, that is how it's going to be. This is where Hullcoin starts to depart from the established cryptocurrency model, because even the wallets, at least in the early pilot stages, we're planning that even the wallets will be held by us.
Yeah, there's nothing really wrong with that as long as you're telling it exactly how it is.
Yeah, sure, exactly. I mean, we'll just hand out cards with ID numbers on, and each ID number will be attached to a wallet address, and then a merchant who agrees to participate in a Hullcoin will say, okay, I did this transaction for this wallet number, and then send it into the system, and then we'll do all the transactions. So yeah, in that sense, it's going to be centralized. But I think the thing that, yes, we absolutely will be open about it, and I will just say that the way we're planning the governance of Hullcoin is that we've got the main board of directors, but then we're going to have subgroups like technical steering and also an ethics group. So that is stuff that'll come up in the ethics group. But I think while we will make that information open, I think most of the people who we hope will use Hullcoin won't care and won't even understand. And I think that's a problem in general that cryptocurrencies have got to get around, because we take the analogy of the Linux desktop ecosystem. You've got Mac, you've got Windows, I mean, you've got this whole menagerie of Linux systems. And while I agree with many people that Linux is actually better, it is confusing if you're getting into Linux for the first time. Is to, well, do I go with Mint? Do I go with Ubuntu? Do I go with SUSE? What's the difference? And I worry that with there being so many altcoins, that will be the problem. And because for Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general to succeed, we need to get it into the hands of people who, that when listening to this show, will think we're talking a foreign language.
I guess it kind of is, though. I mean, so Bitcoin's like the Ubuntu of currency, of digital currency. I mean, it's niche and it's technical and stuff, but I don't worry too much about that fragmentation, because I know that comes as a part of the open source. You got something there, Marguerite?
I was just going to say that's why a coin that goes out of its way to make a purpose for itself is really good for implementation and to market itself to a population, because you buy the coin and then you have something to do with it right away. Yeah. And I think that's an innovative social thing that we're seeing with the cryptocurrency, and I hope we see more of it. But so that's what makes me upset then when we say, oh, it's a new coin, and we just write it off, it's a scam coin, let's not talk about it. And yes, you need to look into it, but I think there's a new way of thinking about this process that's happening, and by targeting those markets, those people are going to be interested, and it's going to be, instead of going into Bitcoin and then into cryptocurrencies, they're going to be going into the, from the bottom up. And I think that's the right way to go. And I know Thomas thinks Bitcoin should be the first thing you introduce.
Well, and it should, but at the very end, it should be about Bitcoin. I mean, a lot of the Dogecoin attitude was, Dogecoin is better, we don't even need Bitcoin. Well, it turns out you do need Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a store of value. Bitcoin has industrial, large-scale holdings. Bitcoin has a bunch of companies creating new software for it. Bitcoin has more wallets, more tip bots. As long as that's true, creating a new currency is just a way of designing a new tip bot, designing a new Twitter thing, designing a new wallet, making a new iPhone app. You're duplicating your efforts. Your efforts could be better spent on wider Bitcoin adoption.
I have to say that when you're communicating with people about crypto, I find it's a real constant tension in my mind whether I should say Bitcoin so that people will have a better idea of what I mean, or should I say cryptocurrencies, because really I'm talking about the general type of blockchain-based technology. But then I know, depending on my audience, people aren't going to understand the term cryptocurrency. Because, I mean, this year with the announcement of Hullcoin, I've been on local radio so many times and talking about it. And when I'm talking to people or when I'm writing something, I'm always struggling whether to say, well, should I say Bitcoin or should I say cryptocurrency? Because I need to think about who will understand what I'm saying.
I manage
like
that
digital
personally.
currency. Why not digital currency? I mean, cryptocurrency certainly sounds a bit
Because that could be
daunting
like
to the
PayPal or
uninitiated.
some other stuff.
Yeah, this is a blockchain-backed, proof of
Yeah.
work or proof of stake-backed blockchain.
So
And I think that
solved
goes
that
back
problem.
to,
I
I
immediately
think that
tell
goes back
people
to
at the
what
beginning of
David
the
was.
con-
I'll let you go.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, what David was saying about Hullcoin and having it being pre-mined and having it been the transactions handled by one institution, you don't have to be decentralized. What's neat is that now we're in kind of a post-blockchain era where the blockchain's been discovered and we have decentralized institutions, but it's okay to take part of that technology and to create a centralized institution. So.
If it serves a purpose, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons that you'd want it to be decentralized was so that it couldn't be stopped, right? Like Hashcash and some other stuff back in the day where it was centralized and therefore shut down. It'd be hypocritical for them to shut down something where it's exactly like Bitcoin, except they just 100% pre-mined it and then did it like he was talking about. Because it seemed, first of all, I think it's a locality-based thing anyway, he said, but it'd be really weird for them to decide that that was not okay. But then all the rest of this is, it would be like admitting that they only don't shut down Bitcoin because they can't, which I don't think they want to admit.
And like Chris has said, they do have other alternative currencies in the UK, like the Brixton pound, where you can hold it, you can spend it at stores in a local area, and it's just like we have similar things in Maine and New Hampshire. They have local dollars where they just you can use them at 10 shops in a certain town. So.
Yeah, it's like gift cards. Like it's a really weird thing when they try to say that some of these things, they being whoever the authorities are and where you live, like when they started to recently say that, okay, Bitcoin is going to be legal in California. Well, was it not legal before? Explain to me how it wasn't. And I guess there's some sort of legal confusion that basically would have also meant that gift cards were illegal in California until they changed this law around. Obviously, no one enforced this.
One of the things that drives a lot of this hyperlocalism that we're seeing recently is the need to lock in value to a local community, because one of the things that we're seeing with the stock markets being fueled by high frequency traders and the incoming communication highway is that people can now execute value at a distance without looking one another in the eye. Like if everyone on Cryptsy and BTCE had to wake up to one another every morning and had to know each other inside of a small village, those charts would look very, very different, right? We're only getting away with a lot of this volatility on the markets because we don't have to know each other afterwards. We can kind of do it to someone else. When it's just a bunch of numbers on the screen, you're not thinking about the negative externalities that you're creating. One of the problems that we've got in the UK is the housing bubble. Because the United Kingdom is such a small country, what's happened is a lot of sovereign wealth funds from abroad have been investing in property, which has been fueling a price rise, which has then been pricing out a lot of people that actually live and work here. But the thing is, a lot of the actual intrinsic value of property is created by the local businesses and the schools and the actual people that every day are waking up and caring about the place and picking up the litter. But then what you get are these kind of investment managers who come in, act as buyers, take the market all the way up into a bubble, pricing out local people, and then they turn into sellers the next time some other asset class comes into their purview, and then they crash the market, leaving a lot of the later buyers in negative equity. So it turns out that it's quite important for you to be able to lock in some of the economic energy that your local community creates. And David, am I right in saying that that's partly what's fueling the Hullcoin project now?
Yeah, Hull, as with many cities in the UK, have been hit really hard with austerity in the UK, and actually Hull gets hit disproportionately. So there's a huge amount of unemployment and financial and poverty and fuel poverty here. So that's why they wanted a local currency. They wanted a tool to be part of a wider anti-poverty framework. And as you were saying about the property market, I'm going to have a personal grumble now, that is actually what's happening in the property market in Hull, actually, because there's a few good things happened in Hull. The property prices are going up a little bit, so my landlord is selling the house, so I have to go.
Right, and we're ignoring the social cost. We're actually undervaluing the impact of the social cost of a lot of these, behaviors that we're committing in these markets.
It's where a digital or cryptocurrency can actually help if it's implemented locally, but you need to distribute mining equipment among the poor people. So and then you've got the security of the network, which you might not have with a more centralized coin, and it's certainly got the social aspect of helping the community, and maybe it would give a bit more incentive to more people using it as well. I don't know if there's some sort of way of distributing mining equipment locally.
How does that work, David? How does it work with the mining?
Well, in the case of Altcoin, that is not an issue. We're not currently inviting people to come and mine it. We will do it ourselves on one system. As I say, we could probably mine the entire currency in one block. It's a trivial.
Yeah. But you still have to.
Well, that's a little. How are you gonna? You still have to mine afterwards, as far as when traditional blockchains are involved, to just record transactions occurring. So I don't know how you'd go about not having any mining occurring.
Well, it's more about handling transactions, I think, not having a block reward. If there's no block reward, there's no intention to make new coins. I think a lot of the new gift card coins that we're going to see, if you think about if Coca-Cola came out with a coin, they don't want you to mine Coca-Cola early and then never pay for a soda again. That's a disaster for them. The same way they don't want a 51% attack and suddenly someone owns all the Coca-Cola. They need a more controlled system, but remember, the blockchain is just an invention. It doesn't have to be used for Bitcoin. It can be used for other things, and I think that's what we're going to see in the next 6 months to a year.
Right. I'm confused. Hang on for a sec, guys. Okay, so I got it. When there's no more block reward, there's no more coins being created. That's perfectly okay. I understand.
There's less incentive to mine. I guess you get a percentage. You get a percentage of the transactions that go through in Bitcoin and Dogecoin, Litecoin, other coins that have planned for this problem. I think with Altcoin, if you have the institution that's mining, the institution keeps mining because they want to keep mining because they want to support Altcoins. You don't have to bribe them. Whereas the Doge.
Sorry.
So go ahead.
I'll say we'll handle processing transactions ourselves in our own closed network. That's how we'll do it initially, and the details on that are not pinned down yet. So as I say, everything I say is subject to change, but it will be done on a closed network. We won't be asking members of the public to come in and mine or process transactions for us. Personally, I would love to see it get to the point where we can open it up and say, right, everybody have at it. But right now, for the reasons that we're doing it, it's not really appropriate.
Will the transaction fees be free?
Don't know yet. I can't answer that.
Have you considered the implications of it?
Pardon?
Have you considered the implications of it being free or not free, and then if it were not free, where the transaction fees would go, what they'd be used for?
We have not got to that yet. We've got a few events and sessions lined up to actually start really drilling into this. We are having a workshop day with New Economics Foundation soon, and we're also going to be conducting a feasibility study as well. So that's all got to be worked out yet.
I see. Well, I'll be interested to see what you guys do. There's a right answer to that, so have fun.
Okay.
Very cool, very cool. Well, guys, we're in the second hour now of this talk show. We have had quite a lot of questions coming in on the Q&A. If you head over to the Q&A, do you want to go through a few of these?
Cool.
So let's start with this one from Moira6. He says, what about Bitcoin 2.0 coins and all the early investments into them? Are they scum? Well, this is the thing.
Are they all scum?
Are they all? The thing is, everyone and their dog now is bringing out a Bitcoin 2.0 coin, and really, it's a question of whether it's marketing or if there's anything actually underpinning it. This is pretty much what we've been saying the whole time. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Well, I think if they call it a Bitcoin 2.0 coin, then it's marketing. It's just a matter of whether that was something that was put out from the very beginning by the creators and that was them trying to market from the beginning, or whether that's something that the community latched onto and said that this is a Bitcoin 2.0.
Well, and just to repeat something from the Bitcoin group yesterday, Kristov made a great point that a lot of people bought Bitcoin early, did no work, held it for several years, and then got very rich. Everyone else out there that I know is trying to copy this formula. We would like to buy blank coin early, we would like it to go up like crazy, and we would like to be the ones who sell and get a Ferrari. So if every new altcoin you have to put it to that test, who's going to get the Ferrari if this altcoin succeeds? And if the answer is not you, you probably shouldn't be buying it. I know, it's crass, Chris, but people think this way. People think about profits. Like, they've seen other people profit without working.
Sure, but when, sure.
There's a massive amount of risk that you undertake, though, that your money is just going to be worth absolutely nothing. I mean, Bitcoin people were crazy until, like, approximately 6 months ago. So
people have forgotten that already. Their eyes are large with the profit, and
people tend to underprice that risk as well, and a lot of people I meet that have got into this, they're not being honest with themselves about their tolerance for risk either. They're over investing, and they're telling themselves a story about how it will be okay, but they're not being honest with themselves. That's why when Gox crashed, we had so many people that were freaking out. Like, that's why Tom and I did that video where we had the IRC channel up live to see just how much people were freaking out over this. And they were even more freaked out when they found out that the data got leaked. And there's something recently that's just come out today, I think, called the Willy report, where a bunch of these kind of independent investigators have gone through the leaked database from MT Gox, and they've started to notice all of that kind of manipulation. Maybe that's something we can come to. We've also got a question from Newspeak Radio. Pre-mine with centralized processing in government hands sounds fishy to me. So David, I did actually have a question along these lines as well, which is, what about the metadata that sits on top of the payment processing? Because a lot of what the banks have been doing for the last 20 years right under our noses is they've been taking cash into the digital realm, and they've actually been tracing all of our payments to try and build up a profile about our spending habits, because it turns out that what you spend your money on also has value. So have you guys at Hull had any thoughts about what you want to do about this from an ethical standpoint?
Okay, the first point that I will clear up is that there's a confusion about Hullcoin, which even I possibly perpetuated in my initial article. Hullcoin is not. It started out there, but it is not in local government hands anymore. The people who work in Hull City Council who came up with the idea of Hullcoin have spun it out into an independent company, and that's the company of which I'm on the board of directors. So we have insulated it from central control, well, central government control.
I don't find that there's any difference between groups of people. Government to me is a group of people. Companies are a group of people. Governments are a slightly more troubling group of people because they also tend to control like thought in a way where you think that it's moral for you to let them have their monopoly on force. But fundamentally, I don't see it. There's no difference in centralization between whether it's a government or whether it's anything else. That doesn't mean it's always bad or always good. Just it is.
I agree, but I will say in this case, if you have Hullcoin under the control of local government, it is subject to the emotions and desires of people who have got political rivalries, or you put it under central control of a group of people who want to tackle poverty. So,
and they're not subject to corruption or their values or having friends or anything. I mean, I think it's a fine idea. I think it works just fine because you're telling it to be exactly what it is, and people aren't forced to use it. So I don't have a problem with it.
And basically, I'm saying it's the lesser of evils. In terms of metadata, there will be metadata, and there are data protection laws that have to be adhered to. In terms of what will be done with that data beyond that, we haven't had any discussions about that. I don't expect there'll be anything very onerous about it. I mean, if there is ever a discussion
Oh, too bad. We'll have to see if David comes back. I want to hear the rest of that answer as well. Josh, we have a question here. Looks like you've got a fan. Somebody wants to know, what is your Twitter handle?
FNXTX.
FNXTX. There you go. David is back.
Foxtrot November, whatever, X-ray, I guess is what it is in NATO.
Mm-hmm.
Tango X-ray.
Sorry about
Go for it.
disappearing. Apple works again. Yeah, I was just saying that if there is anything onerous, I mean, I'll make a public promise now that I'll fight such things for as long as I'm responsible for it. That's the best as one person I can say.
Good. That's all you should have to do, is you should just do the best that you can, and then if it's not good enough, then people will use something else.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, anyway, we are going to have metadata, and I actually see, seeing as it's going to be like handed out to people in crisis and stuff, I am concerned, and this is an ongoing discussion within Altcoin about what do we do about restricting how people spend it, because really, if we're giving this out as an anti-poverty voucher, and you get someone who's out of work because they're an alcoholic, and then they get a crisis payment in Altcoin and they're going to use it to buy a bottle of wine. That's not good. I would say that's inappropriate. Whereas at the same time, they are responsible for their own actions. You don't want to be aiding and abetting an existing problem. So these are all things that we're going to have to work out the ethics for.
This is going to be interesting to watch. It's kind of fundamentally like the exact opposite of the way that I think about almost anything, actually. Trying to but that's not to say that it's you know, part of the way that I think about things is I would never tell you that you shouldn't or can't do it. So I'm going to be interested to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm stating a personal opinion, Ben. I'm not even saying we shouldn't restrict such things. I just find that particular proposition troubling.
Well, I certainly don't want to deliberately make anyone worse off, right?
Yeah.
So if you have the ability to choose, if it is truly a binary choice, I either do this or I do this, and doing this causes one bad thing, so...
Yeah, I think probably the way a successful approach I've seen in social projects is to have and not to be confused with blockchain, a transactional approach where you, like, someone who has gone off the rails and you're helping them and say, okay, well, we do something for you and you do something good in return. So you can maybe work on that basis as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, it sounds like there might be some, some moral hazards there, but I actually look forward to probably dedicating a whole show to this, David, because it sounds like there's an awful lot to get through. But moving on, we've got the Griffiths, who also says Dogecoin helped Bitcoin by getting a lot of new users into Bitcoin that would actually have never gotten into BTC in the first place. In fact, it is still doing that. This is what I said on the Bitcoin group on Friday. I think that Jackson Palmer and Dogecoin have had a net positive effect by order of magnitude, because they did get a lot of people. I had a lot more people come up to me and ask me about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin after Doge than beforehand, because he came into the Feathercoin forum, he saw how friendly we were, and he wanted to recreate the same thing but around a popular internet meme that would then be able to spread itself across society. Yeah, like I say, my only concern really was that with the whole moon motif, that you were it was sort of like a Ponzi scheme, but because you put a cute dog on the front, it's kind of okay, and we kind of forgive it. But I still think a lot of people end up making money at the expense of others, not because they're idiots or they're stupid. I know this gets said a lot, like everyone's responsible for their trades, but also just because they don't understand markets as well. Like they don't know how to read an order book.
But we have the internet. I really come back to this. Like when you have Google and you have the internet, basically I say if you speak English is your native language, and you have the internet, which you probably do if you speak English as your native language, you're pretty much responsible for anything that you do. I can forgive you if you speak Swahili because you have a much more limited information set available to you. You should probably get to learning a more mainstream language. I'm not proud that that's English. That's just a fact of that. I'm actually a very staunch critic of English. If you've been around me, as a language, I think it kind of sucks. It's difficult to describe anything factually. It's not a logical language, but it is where most of the information is written. So basically, yeah, I say that if you speak English and you're making dumb decisions about shit that's on the internet, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy. I might help you.
There's a lot that can be learned from these losses as well, and so people are becoming really good traders. There's a lot of people that are starting out with 0.2 Bitcoin. They might have got into Doge early, and they've decided that they want to start trading other coins. They can see the value of Doge going down, and that's only because of the design, the technical specifications. There's just so many coins coming to market constantly. You know, and people are having a go at trading. They're making losses, yes, but then they're learning from those losses, and they are creating liquidity in the markets by having another go. And there's plenty of success stories where people turn 0.2 into 10 Bitcoin, you know, and you're not going to do that anywhere else, you know, and you're learning really important lessons when it, you know, trading altcoins are like, it's like any other trading, you know, on amphetamine. It's just accelerated learning, and you know, you either do succeed or, you know, when you don't, you know, there's lessons to be learned, and as long as you are constantly trying to improve, I don't see there's a great loss, even if it is short-term financial.
So it sounds like you're saying, so this is often referred to as winning the loss in trading, which is when you lose a lot of money, you're supposed to just learn from that mistake and move on. And actually, one of the positive silver linings that could come out of this is that we all learn to manage our risk better. And, you know, maybe you lose a load of money because you got in, you know, too late, or you got greedy and you tried to invest too quickly, which is usually why you lose the money, because you invest too quickly. And actually, maybe what I need is the ability, every time I go to buy petrol to fill up my car, I have to have a way of buying oil CFDs, so that, you know, if the price of the petrol goes up, well, at least I get to hedge it a little bit by having a position in crude oil, so that, you know, I also get a rise in that as well. Maybe we should all just go around, you know, with trading.
Get your car onto the blockchain and let it do it for you. I mean, that's possibly the future. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, lessons to be learned in every loss. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's cliche, really, isn't it? But yeah, it's very, very true. No trader makes nothing but 100% successful gains and winning trades, but it's a matter of making sure you're limiting your losses and, you know, maybe nurturing the winners. You know, you certainly wouldn't have wanted to cash out of Darkcoin 2 weeks ago because you were 20% up. You know, you'd now be hating yourself much more than the odd coin where you might lose 20%,
but that's
and then you have to stomach that loss.
But that's actually what a lot of good traders do. They have stop losses, and when they get 10 to 20% gains, they slowly start to exit their positions, because what they don't want to take big risks. They're actually risk averse, and usually what they do is they look for the trade that falls into their lap. They don't go around chasing things. One of the reasons why people lose money so much on these altcoins is because they trade with no real reason, right? They just throw a load of money at something. And then they end up going, oh, look, I've lost lots of money. They also underestimate what's called base risk, which is when the actual trading platform can crash, or the whole currency could collapse, or the whole cryptocurrency industry thematically could collapse under its own weight. So a lot of people don't take those kind of risks. And the Black Swan, you know, Nassim Taleb's, you should definitely look up books like Fooled by Randomness and Black Swan. The Black Swan is that unanticipatable event. Fundamentally, the future is unknowable. Nobody knows what the price is going to do, even the insiders oftentimes. And the Black Swan will always be lurking around the corner as an unexpected event when you start getting comfortable, and when you stop, you know, you lose your sense of danger and you're not looking out. And the people that get rich mostly in society are the ones that are really good at protecting their profits. It's not so much the
risk management. Everything is risk management. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, Marguerite, do you have anything to say?
It's about balancing risk.
Well, I was thinking, we have the scamcoin sentiment that we've discussed, but I think a little bit of this comes from also the, you know, you have some hurt feelings because a lot of people are perceiving Bitcoin as being elitist. There's a little bit of elitist sentiment happening right now as well. And so I think people are trying to keep it raw and of the people. And to me, it seems like altcoin exhibits those traits more so than Bitcoin. While Bitcoin might have more money and more backing and more venture capitalists, I think that's the reason why we still like to feel like we can do something. And so while there's almost a battle there and a schism forming, I don't like that we're saying hurtful things to each other. I think that is is hurting us, but I think it's important to keep going broad with the cryptocurrencies, but continuing the depth of the technology and the advancements with the Bitcoin, and somewhere that is going to form a really nice sphere, and it's all going to come together. But it's important to keep moving ahead and to keep an open mind that we're all trying. Most of us are trying. When you say that there are so many people intentionally hurting each other, that makes me pause. I feel like when someone takes the time to write a code and to make a coin, a lot of that probably comes out of curiosity and trying to create. And I feel like we should always encourage creativity, even if it fails. Like failure, like Andreas says, is an option, and we should keep that spirit alive.
Yeah, and other people can learn from your failure too. That's another thing. But I think really the criticism was mainly aimed at the whales on the exchanges and maybe even the exchanges themselves, rather than the actual coders. Because I'm not convinced that coders that are behind these coins are the ones that actually gain anything. I think it's the whales on the exchanges that manipulate the order books. Looks like Tom has got something up on his screen there.
Well, and remember, this thing is just getting started. I noticed a brand new button here on coinmarketcap.com. Up in the upper right-hand corner, it says Next 100. That means there's more than 100 coins on CoinMarketCap, and it also has a View All button. So the next thing to look for here is when this says Next 1000, and that there's going to be more and more coins, and likely it's going to be teams of people trying to profit. So that's what you have to look for. Who profits? Who benefits?
I actually think that Bitcoin benefits from that. I think Bitcoin needs a good, solid ecosystem underneath it of other cryptocurrencies, a long tail, a bit like social networks. There are millions of social networks out there that are very successful that only have maybe a few thousand members, but are still providing a lot of value for that small group of people. And actually, I feel like at the moment where we're starting to go wrong, like globally, is this need for scale and control and power, the need to be big, purely for its own sake, without any real sense as to why. Like, I want Bitcoin to succeed if it deserves to succeed, but I also see it working alongside, a very large, long tail of cryptocurrencies, and like Andreas Antonopoulos says, maybe a bit like blogging. There may well be a genuine Bitcoin 2.0 movement that enters the market that a bit like the bloggers did in the early 2000s, where they turned around to the guys doing it in the 90s and said, no, this is how you do it, right? And then you had like all those WordPress bloggers, and now you've got the vloggers on YouTube that are getting millions upon millions of hits. Maybe that could be a possibility too.
I certainly think that it only helps Bitcoin. It sucks for the people that wind up in a crappy coin. I still tend to think that they should have just done their homework better, and maybe they, learned from it and all those nice fancy things that we said earlier. I agree with them. And yeah, ultimately, either you mine it, and if you mine them, then when the thing goes away, you're going to sell them, and you're going to sell them for Bitcoin. You're not going to sell them for dollars. So you're probably going to have Bitcoin for a while. And if you're not mining them, you have to buy Bitcoin to get them, and then when the thing crashes, you're going to sell them back as Bitcoin. So yeah, a lot of the harsh criticisms from the elitism, or the elitists in the Bitcoin community, as it were, yeah, it's unfounded. But we saw the same thing when Bitcoin was newer, right? Now it's easy. It's easy to be a fan of Bitcoin now. People that joined this crap only 9 months ago, right? And now they want to tell people why they shouldn't be in Dogecoin or they shouldn't be in whatever, and not based on any technical merits, but just because they want to feel great about themselves, because that's kind of what people like to do, is to tell you what you should or shouldn't do just based on their own sort of personal feelings without there being any reason behind them. And they're not going to be willing to discuss it really either, so it's kind of pointless. You shouldn't even really listen to them. But it's easy for people to say that you should be only in Bitcoin because Bitcoin's the easy answer now. It's not as mainstream for most, for the entire world, but you can go out and you can live on it and you can do things with Bitcoin now. So that's a cheat. Anybody who says that, well, just don't listen to people, I guess. Actually,
Right.
Use the internet and do your own.
The biggest mistake people make in markets is listening to other people. Trust what you see, not what you hear. And like we're all saying, do your homework. Although I do think we need better educational material out there, because when I first sort of started getting into Bitcoin properly last year, when I did a search on the internet for how to trade, I saw a lot of products being marketed at me. Go onto this webinar and you have to pay to sign up, so you don't really get a sense of the quality until you get there. And actually, it wasn't. Most of what I learned actually was frequenting the BTCE chat box, for all those months that and actually the real cost of all of this is our time, of course, because every minute we spend on these chat rooms and these exchanges is a minute of our lives that we're never getting back again. But I did learn a lot, and actually what I found anecdotally was that the reason people were there was actually not to make money. I think most people on the BTCE troll box don't even spend that much time trading. They just spend their time staring at the damn troll box. They just kind of want an atmosphere. They want to be around people, and whether secretly they're getting together in small groups and setting up pump and dumps, I think they kind of let that go. But what we need to remember is that the Bitcoin blockchain and the blockchain of all of these coins doesn't just track the present exchange of economic value, it also keeps a track of your economic capabilities, right? So when the future look back, when Cripsy gets hacked and all these other exchanges get hacked like Mt. Gox does, and all the data pours out, and we can start consolidating your trading habits with what you were saying on Twitter, with what money you had in your wallet, then the future will see not only what you did at the time, but what you were capable of doing at the time. Because it will show everyone how much money you had and what it was worth, and then what you actually did with it. What do you mean you spent all day on BTCE and you had all this money? You could have been doing anything. Meanwhile, this guy was off and he was helping some lady in Uganda raise money, right? And so all of that's going to be contrasting. I don't mean to guilt trip anyone. I'm just saying, like, I like to keep that in mind when I'm making my decisions about what I should do daily.
Yeah, it would be that's a good way to put it. I'll try and like make it pithier, but yeah, basically, so we all love our anonymity, and I think that I do a lot of work to make sure that, just because I don't really trust, I think that individuals tend to be decent and that groups of people suck, and that sort of paradox is kind of one of the things that we're gonna have to figure out as time moves on and we try to create some sort of world peace kind of thing, and that's going to be the secret. But so because of that, I like my anonymity, but it wouldn't hurt anyone along the way to try and do everything, act as if you're not anonymous at all. And I mean, like, to everyone, to your mother, to your neighbor, to the girl that you're crushing on down the street, to the boy that you're crushing on down the street, to the whatever. If you pretend, I guess this is sort of like one of those benefits to some followers of some religions back in the day, right? What would be some of the good outcomes of believing in a bearded man who's judging you all the time? As long as you believe in a benevolent deity who's kind of judging you based on your merits, one of the good things that can create is you do more good things than you might otherwise because you feel like you're being watched. And sometimes that's all it takes to push someone over the edge between doing crappy stuff and being a little bit more honest. There was a study, I think it was at a college, I don't remember which one, but they had a bunch of bikes that were being stolen all the time from the bike rack. And so they just painted an eye, like a creepy fucking eye, over the bike rack. And the thefts dropped by like 95%. And it also worked by just putting up a sign that said that there was a camera, even though there wasn't one. So just the idea, that's all it takes to push people over the edge into being just like slightly better people, is feeling that people. So if everyone tried to act like they were, assume that all the data is going to come out, assume that in 10 years everyone's going to decipher the blockchain completely and that everything that you were doing is going to come out, and don't be worried about it from like oh my god, I'm going to jail because I spoke out against whatever, because that's shenanigans. That's a valid fear to have. I don't want the NSA to come swoop me up, which they might be, sometime soon, but don't think of it that way. Think of it just generally like neighbors and sisters and brother and whatever. What would they think if they saw everything that I was doing?
Well, this is why I get embarrassed if, like, say, I trip over and no one's around to see it. Like, I've still got like a miniature version of society that's kind of judging me. But if anyone wants to know more about this, Jeremy Bentham's Panopticon, you can look that up. Also, Foucault, the philosopher Foucault, spoke a lot about this, that the fact that if we think we're being watched, even if we're not, as Josh says, it changes our behavior. And I think there's a fundamental difference between my thinking that I'm being watched by my contemporaries and my think that one day someone in the future, long after I'm dead, might come back and go through all of my accounts and all of my online activity and try and work out, like, okay, so what did Chris think he was capable of and what did Chris actually do? So guys, is there any other points that we want to make? We've got a few other questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
Well, I agree with what you guys are saying about acting in the real world as if you're being watched. It comes back to quality and reputation. You want to maintain a good reputation by acting like a quality individual. The golden rule, do unto others as they do unto you. But like Cory Doctorow said in his book Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, they had a reputation system called Woofy. And they would send Woofy points to people when they did good things. And that you just have to assume that those points are being sent, that the karma is there, even if Reddit doesn't exist in the real world and we don't all have karma. Doing good things does matter, and it's important to act that way.
You should also assume that medicine will progress to the point that you don't die. Doesn't mean that it'll be true, but you should probably act like it.
It is a positive way. It will help everything, I think, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about transhumanism in this show the other day, actually. That kicked off quite a furore in the chat box underneath it. This optional mortality thing is kind of disturbing me a little bit.
I love the phrase, optional mortality.
Optional mortality.
Maybe
That's what I want.
Maybe I won't. Maybe let's just see what I feel like.
Of course I'll check that box.
So we do have a question about the Willy report. Does anyone know anything about the Willy report?
Well, I've been
just scanned through it. I know nothing.
Since the question, and it sounds absolutely terrifying. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but back on the Bitcoin report, which is a program that the Bitcoin channel does, he noticed a strange thing in the chart on Mt. Gox, that it had what looked like an artificial bottom. This was very terrifying. This was also when Bitcoin was down in the 250s, 300s on the Gox price from the heights of 1200. And looking back at it, they noticed that there are two trading bots, Willy and Marcus. Marcus with a K, MK, OK. And these two trading bots were on Mt. Gox operating with what seems like super user privileges. The Marcus account never had to pay any fees on its trades. Neither of the trading bots had a country code attached to their accounts. And perhaps most damning is that the user Marcus's user ID was actually changed to 634. 634 is the same user ID as Magical Tux, the alias of Mark Karpellis. So it looks very, very bad that Mt. Gox was manipulated from within side by two trading bots allegedly related to the people running the exchange.
Well, that's not really surprising to me. I'm glad that we've managed to sort of prove this, but I don't think this is surprising. We were all, well, observers.
It's not a surprise, but it's just like the NSA thing. The NSA thing for years, we said they're copying the whole internet. They're doing it to everybody. They're not just doing it to criminals or terrorists, whatever you want to say. Well, now that's 100% true. So it's a different thing when it's 100% true versus we really, really, really think it's true. So
yeah, I guess that's true.
And this is starting to be, they're looking at the evidence. This is based on, like Chris said, the Mt. Gox data dump, and that some intrepid mathematicians, cryptologists, whatever you want to call them, have produced the Willy report and are out there with this thing, and it looks really bad.
And does anyone remember the BTCE troll box all those months ago when everyone was speculating on LTC on GOX, LTC on GOX? This was one of the reasons why Litecoin got so high. And I wonder if there are questions to be asked about what Mark Karpellis was doing. Maybe, when those press statements used to come out on Facebook, on the MTGOX Facebook page, do you remember that? That you would often see these price rises on Litecoin followed by a press statement from MTGOX as to when it was going to be.
It eventually seemed like they had to stop doing it because it was so obvious market manipulation. It was embarrassing. They actually they didn't list Litecoin. They say we're having some other coins, and everyone assumed it was Litecoin.
Right. So we're meeting with the consequences of our actions much, much sooner. And I wonder what this is going to do to our decision making. I know that in cognitive psychology at the moment, one of the big areas of research is this thing called decision theory, which is how how you go about acquiring information about your next step. Nobody is ever quite where they want to be in life. We're always a little bit displaced, and we're always heading somewhere else. And Google, one of the things that Google innovated on that a lot of other search engines didn't seem to grasp in the late 90s was that people want to make themselves more intelligent about their decisions. And the first thing they're going to want to do is they're going to want to go to a search engine, and the next thing they're going to want to do is leave. And all the other search engines wanted you to stay. That's why Yahoo knew, Yahoo had like weather and ads and sports, and they wanted you to stay on the page. But Google realized, no, actually, we want you to leave. Like, take the information and go. And then what we'll do is we'll keep all that data. And then later on, they start, tracking your IP address, consolidating it with your Gmail, consolidating it with all of the other data points. And then all of a sudden, they start to get a picture. They actually get to know you better than you know yourself, because they can see that kind of high-level view. So I wonder what this will do to people's decisions and markets in the future if we know these these databases can just be liberated at any point. After all, the internet is a meta network, right? It's a network of networks. Every network the internet touches, it liberates. It, like, all the information just spills out like water. So any database that's got a public IP address is vulnerable to one of these attacks. Cryptography, I don't think, is going to save us.
Well, there's crypto computing. Like, it's very complex now. So if we ever manage to successfully compute cryptographically, where the information stays encrypted the entire time, then the only real final weakness in the privacy chain, is if the underlying cryptographic methods are actually broken. And then, of course, the only way to get around that, as far as we know, is to use a one-time pad, which is massive, so we're not going to use that.
There's also the human element. As Bruce Schneider said in Secrets and Lies, you can always social engineer your way in. The best system is only as good as your employees. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, guys, this has been really great. Do we have any final thoughts?
Well, let's hear from Marguerite, because she's been very quiet.
Thank you, Marguerite, for bringing this all together. This was your idea.
No, Chris, I'd say that you actually jumped on this, and I really appreciate it, because I feel like this is something that needs to be discussed more, and that we need to remember we're generally all on the same team, and positive communication is going to take us where we want to go.
Well, maybe, given that the Bitcoin Foundation recently have been, going on a bit of a PR push to sort of gain more acceptance, maybe we need a foundation for all of these altcoins. And some of what Josh has been saying is making me feel like, maybe, Josh, you're best placed to kind of kickstart, a kind of a public reputation system, at least lay out a framework for an open set of standards that we can all agree on, so that when someone gets into cryptocurrency for the first time, a lot of what we talked about, not basing it, basing your decisions on what you hear but what you see, all this kind of thing, how to read an order book. And you would not believe how difficult it is to go on Google, look up what a wall is, what a buy wall is. It's actually, there's quite a lot of friction there. So maybe we could streamline some of that for new entrants. What do you think?
Like, teach them how to properly use a search engine, because that seems to be a sticking point.
Oh, come on!
For a lot
Like,
of people.
it's not that straightforward, because there's a lot of culture and terminology that gets used, and like you say, it's the control of the language. And a part of me feels like a lot of the experts in this scene don't want other people to know, like, what a buy wall is, or what a way, like how the manipulations take place.
That's an interesting angle on it, because I think that they would, and I'm sure you agree that that's mistaken, right? Because we all benefit from the better liquidity and from the price stabilizing, and so that's a very, from a game theory standpoint, that's a very selfish and counterproductive thing to do. It actually hurts them in the long run.
Yeah, but people.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There are selfish people out there, and there are people that just want to try and manipulate others so they make more money. And I hope that the whole scene will carry on maturing, where these people get called out, their reputations get destroyed as a result, and people start to realise that there is enough money to be made being totally open and honest and helping people as much as possible. I think that's what I'm seeing happen more, and certainly on Twitter, the people that are more helpful become more popular. People start to follow them more, and if they're open and honest about things, and it's the people that are trying to constantly trick other people, you know, they eventually come undone. They lose reputation, and you know, it just seems pointless to me. I mean, there is enough money to be made by being honest, and you know, that's something that I think maybe an altcoin foundation that would represent all coins, and maybe give new coins maybe a bit of a seal of approval once the code's been studied. Make sure we get no more Asia coins coming out. I think there is some scope for that, absolutely, and you know, I'd hope it would be accepted as well. But yeah, I think things are moving very quickly, and I think they are moving in the right direction as well.
That Asia coin was really a once-in-a-lifetime beautiful scam. Hiding extra coins inside a block to be sold at a later time is just really outside of the box thinking. Just incredible work, absolutely.
Well, you mean they actually almost deserved the money just because how clever the fraud was?
It was really like it's our own fault for not reading the code. All we had to do is read all of the code, and we would have seen, oh no, at a certain point it injects a new block. Like, that's just genius. That's just taking advantage of the current situation, having new ideas, and exploding them on people. Obviously, it's you know, selfish, deceptive, you know, destroys the people that it brought into it. But as far as a new idea, it's a new idea.
Well, listen, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for everyone for your thoughts. You can please follow us on the World Crypto Network on Twitter @WorldCryptoNet if you want to find out more information. If you really liked this show, you should definitely be tweeting us out. I'm Mr. Chris Ellis on Twitter. And if you have any thoughts and suggestions, we had way too many questions to get through in the Q&A. Please let us know, and we'll happily arrange for this again. Maybe we should have some more developers as well on this panel next time. That would be really good. Well, thank you again, and I will speak to you next time. Bye.